This basement pile ridiculous.
We good?
Hi folks, welcome to the Blacksmith Shop. I'm Ray for the Historic Arkansas Museum. I'm putting a little bit better edge on this tool. Give me just a second. This is called a hot cut. It doesn't have to be like a knife blade or anything. It just needs to be pretty sharp. So we've got it to where it'll cut. And we're going to cut a piece of metal. A couple weeks ago, I started a piece that I reduced the piece down, and I'll show it to you now. Remember, I reduced that from that. Now I'm going to cut this narrower piece off and start forging the blade. So if you'll bear with me, we'll get this cut off. I've got my tongs ready, got my cutter ready, and the piece is fairly hot. Now we're going to take that, simply lay it there. Cut it off. You can see it just working its way through. So as it gets near the edge, I'll just stop, put that thing aside so that I won't get cut by it. Now we got it in two pieces. We're going to use this piece and we're going to lay this one aside, use it later. We put it over here out of the way so it's in a safe spot. We're going to start forging the blade. So the tip or the blade point is what we're going to forge first. So we'll get that hot. We're going to go to the horn and the face of the animal. The horn and the face. That's what we'll be primarily working on. I have to be really conscious of the heat, the level of heat that's in this thing, so that I don't overheat it. It's going to take on a kind of a weird shape. But you can see already it's to a point. There's a little roughness right there that I will file off. Because I want to make sure that there's no roughness. I want a good smooth surface on the whole thing. So let's get that horn. I'll bring it to the vise, and I will use a rasp to smooth that up. And this kind of rasping is simply called hot rasping because the material is soft. And the big teeth that are in the rasp will remove that material pretty fast. So while it's hot, I I need to be taking that material off. Now that vise sucks the heat right out of it. But see, now that we've got that kind of smooth and that roughness gone, we shouldn't have to worry anymore about that making a shut. A shut is where there's a fold over of the material. It folds over and there's a space where it's not really homogeneous. It's not one material. It's, if you cut behind it, it'll fall off. It'll just flake off. It's not welded. It's not part of the parent bar. It's a flaw, and it will be a flaw. Now that we've removed that possibility, we're back on track. So I'm going to refine the point, thin it just a little bit, and we'll just work for just a few minutes toward progression of the blade, and then we'll tack back up next Tuesday. But let's get a little bit more done before we leave. Done now, push the point over to what will be the bottom of the blade. So this will be the cutting edge of the blade, and we'll come back to this point right here and step it up. So it'll be curved on top, straight, but stepped up on the bottom. So you have to have a vision of the different stages of the blade. Not only the finished product, you can't go from bar stock to finished blade all in one heat or in one motion. There's many stages in between. So I describe it as intersections. We all know that when we drive somewhere, we reach intersections, stop signs, turns, and things like that. You don't go a straight line to your destination. So we can't do that with this either. But we recognize intersections and stages. So I'm at that point where I want to get to another stage, and then from there I know where to go. And we'll end up before long, and maybe in the next video or the next, we'll end up at our destination in the same way. Okay, I'm just going to reach and get enough of it. Now this hammer technique is called half on, half off. So the hammer was right here, half on the anvil, half off the anvil, as in that position right there. But the workpiece is between the hammer and the anvil, and it pushes the ricasso, or the back part of the knife, downward, creating a step. That step right there. So we've reached that point, that stage, that intersection, as it were. So let's flatten that out just a little bit, and we will see what it looks like. Flatten it out. When I have to reach directly into the fire to reach a piece, the tongs get rather hot. And so it's not, I don't even hardly feel the heat in my hand, but for the sake of this tool, I try to keep it cooled off. Because over time, if you get it too hot and leave it too hot, it's not good for it. So any of the upsetting or mushrooming that I may have done in the previous step, this action right here smooths it back out. It also lengthens it, and since it's still really thick for a knife blade, we will draw it longer, because all that material has to go somewhere. So let's not leave it in the thickness that's too thick for a knife blade. It's going to be too blunt, too heavy, won't cut as well. So we can lengthen it a little bit and thin it just a little bit, and that'll serve to help the knife when it's finished. So I'm going to turn that around and work on the back half just a little bit, just to smooth it out and straighten things up. Let's get that hot again. I know what I want this stage to look like, and I want to recognize my intersection, as it were. So that's where I'm going right now, and then we'll proceed on to the next one, the next stage. We'll get this hot. A small object like this sometimes takes a little bit longer to get hot, because you cannot force the heat into it really fast, because you may burn it. It may have a thin part or a point or a corner where the heat gets in it so fast that it actually sparkles it and burns it. Carbon goes away. You can actually ruin the steel that way. So the best thing to do is get the atmosphere hot down in the fire and give it just a little time to soak up that heat, and it's easier on the material. Okay, so I'm gonna just try to get, that's all it took really, was just work with its natural shape and keep that shape, maintain that shape. So it's rectangular. So any dents or bad places in it, just trim it up. There we go. Let's get that warm just for a second, and we'll look at it. I'm going to hold it with a different set of tongs, so maybe you can see it a little bit better. I'm also going to heat it up so you can see the glow of it. That way I can see it a little bit better. Our lighting's real dim, but it's good for what we're doing. Okay, let's look at it closely. So again, this is going to be the cutting edge. Now, that cutting edge, when it's pulled down flush with this, and all that material is hammered and beveled, that tip's going to go up. It's going to go up into its final natural position. What we're doing now is positioning the material where we need it at this stage. So at this stage, this is looking correctly. The ricasso is this area. The blade bevels will be here. The tang will be back here. The tang is what goes up into the handle. And the ricasso is just that place where you can stamp your name. The guard fits against it. The blade takes off from it. So there we are. It looks right for this stage. So we recognize where we are and we can go from there. So we'll set that aside for the moment and we'll pick that back up. So what we've done today is cut it off the parent bar, started the forging of the blade. So we pushed it up and we're gonna proceed with the blade forging. But we'll do that next week. So I want you to see that then. So if you get a chance, come back to watch and we'll do another live stream then. So we're glad you stopped in to see us here at the Historic Arkansas Museum Blacksmith Shop. I'm Lynn Ray. Come back.